I heard my daughter say, "Are you going to kill my mommy? And are you going to kill me?" And they said, "No, not if your mommy does everything that we tell her to do."
It was November 21st, 2000, when the lives of Michelle Renee and her daughter Breea changed forever.
It had been such a long day, and I was just excited to be home with Breea. We were on the couch. It was just the two of us.
I was sitting here, she was right beside me, and we were playing Game Boy, and we just heard this huge, the sound, just the biggest noise from behind us. And I turned to look and just saw three people. They were all lined up, one right after the other, just running in the door, that like SWAT style, and they had their guns and they were all in black.
The men forced Michelle and Breea, who was only 7 years old at the time, to the ground and told them that if they didn't cooperate, they would be killed.
A group of individuals put Michelle under surveillance knowing she was a bank manager, and they devised a plan.
They said, "You're going to rob the bank for us, or we will kill you, and your daughter will be first."
The masked men held Michelle and her daughter at gunpoint. Throughout the night, the ringleader gave Michelle specific instructions on how to rob her own bank the next morning.
He said, "Get up, it's time to get ready for work."
I got dressed and started doing my hair when he came in and stopped me and said, "We need to put the dynamite on you now."
Michelle, Breea, and their roommate were strapped with dynamite. The ringleader showed Michelle what looked like a doorbell.
This is a detonation device.
One false move, I pushed this button.
You will disintegrate. Your daughter will go first.
And they sat me right here and said, "Now we're going to take your daughter."
The gunman put Breea in the bedroom closet. Michelle then drove to work with dynamite strapped to her back. The ringleader crouched in the back of the car as she drove. After she arrived at the bank, she headed to the vault with a briefcase stuffed with a duffel bag.
And then you just opened up the duffel bag and started shoveling in money?
I did. My heart was racing. Am I fast enough?
Michelle exited the bank with $360,000 and got back in the car with the ringleader. The gunman told Michelle to get out of the car and then told her where she'd be able to find it. Michelle then raced home to find Breea still in the closet. The other two gunmen were gone, and so was the dynamite strapped to Breea's back and their roommates. But the ringleader had forgotten to remove it from Michelle. After removing the dynamite from Michelle's back, they ran to a neighbor.
I called 911 right away.
Sheriff's Department, can I help you?
Yes, some neighbors of ours were held hostage. I need somebody out here right away.
Investigators and the bomb squad arrived and discovered the dynamite was fake. Investigators questioned Michelle for several hours. During the 14-hour hostage ordeal, Michelle had held on to details that might help identify the suspects.
When I turned the light on to go to the bathroom, and I saw his eyes in there, I said that those eyes were at my desk. Those eyes were at my desk today. Oh my God.
Michelle says she recognized the ringleader's eyes. He had come to the bank earlier that day and posed as a customer.
And he sat at my desk for a really long time asking sort of the same questions over and over. And then a woman walked in and said, "Chris, we need to get going." And they got up and left.
The man handed Michelle a business card with the name Christopher Butler on it. It didn't take long for investigators to arrest Butler and his accomplices. They found physical evidence tying them to the crime, including the ingredients to make the fake dynamite.
There were broom handles, which were cut up into small dowels, which actually were used in making the fake dynamite. They also recovered the actual spray cans. It was crazy. I've never seen that much physical evidence left at a crime scene.
They thought they'd gotten away with it.
Yeah.
By June of 2002, Butler went on trial. During his testimony, he claimed that he had an affair with Michelle and that she masterminded the bank robbery plot.
I was shocked.
It's almost laughable.
What was his story about how the two of you met?
From what I understand, we met in a grocery store and that I recruited him.
Butler claimed he'd gone to Michelle's house that night with two accomplices. He said that in the early morning hours while smoking pot, Michelle brought up the bank robbery idea again and decided they should do it that morning.
His evidence of this, his proof of this?
Zero.
The jury ultimately found Butler guilty of the bank robbery and also found him guilty of Breea and their roommate's kidnapping. But they hung 9-3 on the charges of kidnapping Michelle. Nearly 20 years later, Christopher Butler was up for parole.
He's the one who lied about me.
Prosecutor Tom Manning made sure he was at the parole hearing. Manning saw a chance to set the record straight by asking Butler about the story he told when he was on the stand, that Michelle was the mastermind.
Michelle, if I felt it was right, I was going to go for it.
What'd you think about that?
Go for it. Ask away.
Even though that's risky.
It's a little risky. This guy could go to the grave with these lies.
The risk paid off. Butler recanted his whole story, admitting he and Michelle never had a relationship.
How did that feel to hear that?
It's about time. I wanted everybody who ever doubted me to read this parole transcript. I want to blast it all over the internet that there was never, ever a chance that I would ever have been involved in anything like this, ever.
Finally, 20 years after the crime, Butler apologized to his victims in the kidnapping.
Do you accept Christopher Butler's apology?
I do, yeah, 1000%. I appreciate him finally being honest after all this time. I hope he keeps digging deeper.
Yeah, I forgave him a long time ago and I accept his apology.
In a very weird way, I could breathe, I could exhale finally after all this time.